few weeks ago, I saw this TikTok video or reel or something that was early morning in Santorini in Oya, where you see the blue dome and all the whitewashed buildings. But there were 10 women out there wearing those long, billowy dresses, getting their pictures taken. And it was so funny to me because I know that's a trend, and I know that there are people who travel to do those trends. And I'm not even saying that I wouldn't want to do the trend because it is really pretty to have that flowing dress, but it's not really the kind of travel that I love. I really love the cultural immersion, getting to know a place. And today, that's what I want to talk about because as I move forward in my travel career, that's really the kind of travel that I want to introduce to my clients is going to see the beautiful places, but then to get below it and find out more about what makes a place, what it is, what are the historical context and the people like, and where did the food come from. So let's dive in. What is the essence of cultural immersion? Those are just words that don't really mean anything until we put some context around it. Really, cultural immersion is going beyond the surface of a place. So if you're going to Hawaii, not just going to the beach and having a pineapple or eating spam. Those are things that are pretty surface, but going beneath to find out more about what makes that place the place that it is. What is the historical context? What do the locals do? What is their life like? What do locals eat? What are their jobs? What is their history? Where do they go for their recreation? Those are the types of things that we really look at when we're looking at cultural immersion. So we're going to start with authentic interactions. So interacting with the locals. If you're taking tours, finding tour groups that are local. If you are staying at a resort, finding a resort that hires the locals so that you know that the experience that you're having is authentic and the interactions you're having are with the local people so that you'll learn more about them. You'll also want to take a look at the historical context. Who were the first people who lived there? And then what was happening through history? What other cultures were coming in and leaving their influence on this place that leads it to where it is today? Getting really intimate with the cultural practices. What are the festivals? What are the traditions? What are the things that are going on when we're not there that are going to give us that immersive experience? And then culinary exploration, looking at especially the farm to table movement, where we are bringing in food that is grown by locals and then cooked using historic recipes or by local people, and getting really exploratory. I've said before that I probably will not be eating bugs, and though maybe I'm going to have to take my own bitter pill and be really exploratory when I go to new places, because that is part of the culture, is learning about what are the food sources that people have used and why are they using them, and then how do they fix them so that it is edible to them and to others. Why does it matter for us to be culturally immersive? For some folks, it's not going to matter. And to those folks, that's great. Go take your Instagram pictures and you are going to have a wonderful trip because you know your goal and you're going to go forth and do that. For those of us who want to be more immersed in the culture, it is a learning experience. For me, learning about a culture helps me learn about myself. I have a little bit of everything in me. So whenever I go any place new, I know that I'm learning something about my own culture as well as the culture of the place that's there. And it helps me to appreciate and understand those people more. It also helps foster deeper connections. It's going to help me foster deeper connections with the people that I'm traveling with as we have these experiences together, but also with the people that I am learning from and learning about, and figuring out what makes their world the same and different from mine so that my world then shrinks and I know more about the people in it. I also think that when you are immersed in a culture, you're going to have way more memorable experiences. I could have taken the beautiful dress picture in Santorini, but instead I took a tour with a local who took us to an off the beaten path town in Santorini, a castle as they're called. And I saw folks that were actually using donkeys to carry things, which I would not have seen otherwise because I never saw that when we were in the main strip of Santorini. And we went back roads to go from one place to another where we saw vineyards and we learned about how those grapes are different from grapes other places, and we saw how capers are made, which is one of my favorite foods in the entire world, and I never would have seen that. And then we went to a cultural center that focused on instruments and myths and how those instruments came to be because of the myths. And they showed us the instruments and played the instruments. And my daughter got to be Apollo and play a lyre. And it was such an amazing experience that I remember it now without a picture. And maybe I wouldn't do that if I were just going for the basic Instagram photo type things. Your culturally immersive experience starts with research. If you don't get into the nitty gritty of the place before you get there, you'll miss a lot of the culture or won't know where to look. So start with that research. You can look at magazines and books and travel guides, read what other people have done, and contact locals. There are so many Facebook groups now that I see that are run by locals in different places. People post their questions and then the locals can answer them with advice and give context. And it's such an amazing way of researching a place before you go. You'll also want to choose the right destination. Some places like Japan and Italy and Morocco are just ripe for cultural immersion. They are putting a strong emphasis on making sure that the travelers that come there are understanding the culture that's there, or their culture is just so strong that it's hard not to be immersed in it when you go there. So be sure that if that is your goal, and we've talked about goal setting before, and I'll put a link below to some goal setting tools that you can use, but make sure that that's your goal, that you're aligning that to a place where you're going to be able to be immersed in the culture. You'll also want to engage with locals. You might want to stay with locals or stay where the locals stay. If you are into Airbnbs or Verbos or rentals of any kind, you're going to see those more in places where the locals are than you will in places where the big hotel chains are. So either stay with locals or stay where the locals stay. Participate in community activities. You can find all kinds of things that are going on, from fairs and festivals to volunteer activities and things that you would never notice before. In the blog this week, we have a couple of things linked for you if you want to find out more about volunteering while you're in a place. And the last thing to do to engage with locals is to hire local guides. You can find local guides on many different websites, places where people are there to share their lifestyles and their culture with you because they love it so much and they want to teach you and have you learn about what they love. And it is the best way to get connected to a place is to share the excitement of that place from a local. And finally, you'll want to embrace the local traditions, from fairs and festivals to what they do in the evenings to even going to different religious or spiritual ceremonies. You can also take workshops and classes to help you learn more about the food or the crafts or whatever it is that these folks are making and doing. And learning from locals how to do those things strengthens your connection, but it also has something that you can bring home that's beyond a souvenir that might get dust on the shelf, but that you can use over and over again. I love taking cooking classes. And in fact, that's one of the things that we try to do whenever we travel, and we'll be doing soon when we go to Thailand, is going into a home and learning from locals how they cook their traditional dishes. A few practical tips. One is be open-minded. Yes, these cultures are going to be very different from us in many different ways, from the way they dress to their politics to their spiritual practices. So keep an open mind and remember that different doesn't mean wrong, and that you're there to learn from them to figure out how that will have an impact on you in your own life. You also want to be really respectful, especially if you are going into people's homes or if you are taking part in their spiritual or religious activities, understanding what is culturally norm, understanding what the cultural norms are for them. Like when we go to Thailand, even though it is going to be hot, and here in Texas, we would be wearing, strapless dresses or sundresses. We're all bringing sweaters to make sure that we're covered up when we go into the temples so that we are honoring these folks and what they believe. And finally, I just say slow down. Take the time to really listen and learn while you're there. Be active in the community and not just jumping from place to place. One of my favorite memories of going to Greece was an evening when my daughter and I ended up walking around the entire Acropolis, and we saw so many cool things, shops and relics and people doing their thing that we would not have seen if we had stayed to the tourist places, and it ended up being such a wonderful experience for both of us. I think cultural immersion travel gives us such an amazing way to grow and to learn more about ourselves and others that we can then bring home and broaden our entire lives. You may learn dishes that you haven't learned about before that are actually really great for you and that you love and love to cook. Or you may learn how to do something new that you didn't know how to do before that you can bring home and have a new hobby or a new way of relaxing. There are so many amazing reasons that we should take a look at this new way of traveling that's not just taking pictures and seeing the highlights, but getting really below the surface and learning so much more about a place. If this sounds like something you'd like to do, I'd love to help you create an itinerary that meets your goals for cultural immersion and maybe taking beautiful Instagram pictures too. We can do it all. So, book a discovery call with me today. I'd love to talk with you more about how you can make your travel dreams a reality.